with you folks, I don't know if it's breakfast, lunch, dinner, sleepy time, but happy to be here. So happy to be able to present here. Before we go into the details and the agenda, business development always has some kind of a connotation, right? And sales overall and marketing. Sometimes when we're very busy and we're focusing on more the content and the academic part, we actually forget that a big part of business development and sales is actually human beings, people, right? And one thing I really genuinely discovered throughout my journey is one really big lesson is before we go into how we're going to do it, the strategies and some of the value propositions. So really more than the tools, the strategic direction and the tools we're going to use. Now, for me, a big chunk of business development and sales is actually about a growth mindset. So you're actually investing in your growth mindset is going to be at least as valuable as all of the tools and the direction and the what of the story. So I mean, in that sense, a very quick story from the time I used to be commercial director in Saudi Arabia for Johnson & Johnson. And one thing I've actually noticed, just to illustrate this this point, is so we just went through a joint venture, created the joint venture. My sales team basically came to me and we had a lot of assessments going on to make sure that we had the right people, etc. And they all had the same feedback when I asked about, so why didn't you close the deal? Why didn't you pursue that opportunity? Or why you could have grown a lot more? Why? What blocked you? And a lot of the time I got the same answers all the time. And that was, well, I had a great conversation with that person. I didn't feel it was right. Or it was a really nice person. I didn't want to ask them to buy my products, for example. I think a really big, that really shows you really the limiting beliefs that people actually have. And that's in business development. It's not about you selling and trying to push through something that people don't want. It's really genuinely about adding value, right? About people. So let me just share my screen. Okay, if you can just give a heads up if the, all right, that's great. So we're going to do two things. So the two exercises, one is going to take around 15 minutes, the other one 5 minutes. The aim of this all is actually to really understand with you as partners what's top of your mind, right? What's your priorities? How can strategy tools develop better business development support for you and then sales support? So to that end, the first 15 minutes, we're going to be simulating, selling the transform simulation, right? So it's a real case study that I've went through myself. So I've obviously changed the names, but this is actually a real scenario. And it's all about how would you approach in your breakout teams, how would you approach to target and add value to these customers, right? Then we come back, we have a quick debrief, and in exercise 2, we'll actually look at, we'll start voting on some of the priority focus areas you would like support from strategy tools on, right? So I think a really big part to keep in mind here is some will be in a different maturity level, some will have different priority areas, which is completely fine. We have a framework here that will allow us for you to very easily vote and indicate what your priorities are there. Okay, let's get started on the first exercise. Let me just hold on for a second. Any questions so far? Any comments?
Oh, Bulent, do you want to share the link to the Miro now?
Let me do that right now. Okay, I'll put it in the chat. All right. And Enrico, if you don't mind, just splitting it out around 15 minutes should be fine for the first exercise.
Yeah, I'm checking now the setup. We may have a slightly issue this, Malek. Please go ahead with the introduction.
Okay.
I'm working with the.
So I'll introduce the exercise to you, and please feel free to ask any questions. So the aim is going to be for you to focus on these 9 cards over here. And I've set out the questions. You do not need to go into creating post-its. It's about the conversation that you'll have in the breakout rooms, different perspectives. It will trigger a lot of conversations about what your priorities are and what you would actually like support on from strategy tools. All right, let me zoom in on the case itself. So Actea is a major retail company headquartered in Dubai, UAE. So this company, it's an actual company that's over several generations. The company has built multiple retail verticals, but as we all know, consumer goods and retail are being severely disrupted, right? A lot of them are struggling to find growth, not only in their core, but also in their future growth engines. The company does recognize it needs to transform and has appointed a chief transformation officer called Sarah. Sarah is tasked with to set up the strategy, innovation, and the executional capabilities. However, she has a big issue, and that's she doesn't know where to start. They're not clear on the strategic direction, and there's a huge capability issue in the organization, right? I think that's probably very recognizable for many organizations. But at the moment, they don't have anyone actually to be able to tackle the disruptions that they have. Now, as a solo consultant, that's you. You're certified and you're well-versed in all of the strategy tools, products, and services. So you decide to target this customer with your favorite strategy tool offering, which is the transform simulation. You haven't fully worked out yet how you're going to go about doing this. That's the exercise itself. But you actually want to brainstorm with fellow solo consultants. So the exercise is all about how you go about selling the transform simulation. So there are trigger questions in here that are basically in 3 levels. One is really understanding your customer, right? What are customer jobs to be done? What is the customer pains and gains? And very importantly, we actually often forget about this. They are currently meeting those needs most of the time with some kind of a solution, right? So genuinely understanding what your customer is about and what they're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. That's the first part. After that, you go into what's your value. So what are you offering, right? So obviously you're offering the transform simulation, but what's the narrative there? How do you position the tool itself? What decks do you use actually to present yourself to the customer? And very importantly, you're well-versed in all of the strategy tools, products and services. So, what other strategy tools offerings could you actually plug into the play to actually add that value to the customer? What's your value proposition? And very importantly, rolling back to some of our previous sessions, there was a lot of questions about pricing, right? How do I price myself? How does what factors decide on my pricing and competition? So there were a lot of recurring questions coming there, so we can discuss that. But in here, you really genuinely say, hey, this is my customer. This is the value I'm adding to my customer. Last but not least, your journey to the delivery, right? So understanding how does your buyer actually buy, right? How does your customer, what do they go through before they can actually buy? Where they do their research, for instance, and how do they actually decide on those products and services? What channels can you reach your customer? I have put a whole bunch of examples of what channels you could potentially use. What actually often happens here is that there's a difference between what channels they are on and what channels you feel comfortable to reach your customer. Last but not least, how are you going to deliver those customers? So how do you go to market? Are you going to do it alone? Are you doing it with a partner? Is it a single project? Through workshops, through sprints? So how are you going to deliver your project or your offering to the customer? Any questions so far? All clear? Okay. I hear someone.
Oh.
No. All right. Okay, so focus on these 9 cards over here to, and again, it's all discussions, no need for writing anything, just to save that time. It's more about the quality discussions that you'll have with your fellow solo consultants, if you will. So Enrico, feel free to break out for 15 minutes. Nice session with the team, and I genuinely loved how some of the team members linked our value proposition to actually the jobs to be done and the pains and the gains, right? In our case was, we said, hey, we're going to focus on strategic direction. They have a lack of strategic direction as well as lack of capabilities. And our value proposition is such a way that it addresses these two key issues. So fantastic, very nicely done for everyone in there. So I hope it was useful. Maybe you had some ideas. I already got really a few big ones, and one I would really love. Someone actually said in our breakout, we're not yet organized to deliver with excellence, right? To tap into our network. It's much more one-to-one, and who knows what the rules are? Who pays whom, how much. So I think that there's a lot of potential there. So let me go back then to our second exercise, which is, it seems a lot, but it's going to be only a few minutes. Now, what I would love you to actually foresee here, let me share my screen. And this is where I love to have your feedback. This is extremely important for us to actually understand what you as our partners actually need from strategy tools, where we can add value to you. Now, overall, so how we're seeing it, the partner journey has 4 major pillars, right? And we've broken them down into some of the key focus areas. I'll run you through in a few minutes, and then we're going to do a voting session. I'll take you through how that's going to exactly work. Now, the 4 different pillars are, one is business development. Now, business development is different than sales, right? Business development, actually, you can have 0 sales targets and still do business development. Here is really about developing a strong go-to-market, creating a strong value proposition, and having those very strong, either within strategy tools or third-party partnerships, right? The aim is to really find product market fit here. And the second pillar is sales and marketing. This is all what you would think sales and marketing is. It's about developing and leveraging the material, right? Either for inbound marketing, running discovery sessions, adding to your own website, right? There's a whole bunch of material that strategy tools actually has. And I would love to understand, is this all fit for your purpose? Do you create your own? So is this a priority for you? Secondly is creating a sales process and building a solid pipeline of customers. And the third one is sales coaching to actually grow. You grow, like I said at the start, if you find business development and sales potentially uncomfortable for some, or to change that story, or how to lead customer conversations, how to upsell, cross-sell, etc., using the strategy tools toolkit, if you will. Then the last 2 is on delivery, and delivery is an important one, obviously, on designing and delivering the strategy tools solutions. Now, is that a focus area for you? Do you need support on that? How to facilitate and deliver those great engagements? Do you need any facilitation conversations, support, and ongoing learning and development, right? If something new comes up, are you aware? Any ongoing education you need from strategy tools? Leveraging strategy tools community as well in here, lessons learned. The other day I had a nice conversation with one of you is on, there's so much done by successful partners, a lot we can actually learn from that as well. Right? Lastly, customer success. So how do I retain and create these ambassadors within the organizations you're actually advising? as well as growing the customer lifetime value, right? So keeping them and growing them. And this is, of course, not exhaustive, so feel free to, in your voting, put other as well if you think there's something else in there. But so how this is going to work is, let me create the voting, and it will just take 5 minutes. Okay, so everyone has 10 votes in total. All you need to do is, once I click start, you'll just let me restart this one. Yeah, and we have 5 minutes for this, so feel free to, I can increase it if you like, if no one has done yet. But you can basically choose 10 votes. If you think something is way more important than anything else, feel free to give it 2 or even 3 votes, but you only have 10 votes as a limit in total. So I would love to hear from you to answer the question. I need support from strategy tools in, developing strong go-to-market, etc., etc. Is it all clear? Any questions on this before I press start? Right, excellent. Let's kickstart it now. Okay, so just to get everyone's feedback, if everyone is okay with the voting, it worked well. All right then. So great. So I think it's very interesting. By far the most is on the sales and marketing part, right? And then the business development has a whole bunch as well. And delivery is actually quite interesting. Like, I think the sales and marketing is probably the biggest one, with creating a sales process and how to build a solid pipeline, a clear winner, if you will. Yeah, very, very interesting. Anything else? Any comments from anyone?
It's very insightful. Thank you, Bulent.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So look. So what we'll do next is
sorry. I run out of votes, and then at the end, I read the very last box, grow customer lifetime value. I think, and connecting with Chris's presentation very earlier this morning. I don't know if it's mentioned explicitly on his 9 principles, but I think we all, or most of us, would like to become like the trusted advisors for executive teams and CEOs and whatnot.
Yes.
On at a midterm level. So I think if I had not used up most of my votes on the one that has 17 votes, I would have voted on that, because that's I really think that that is where, at least where I want to be, with a client that calls me back like every 1 or 2 years to help them provide those thinking moments on their strategy.
I love that you just said that, because actually, if you look at the research, over 80% for professional services firms, it's all up and cross sell. The sales that are attributed, it's all growing customer lifetime value. So knowing how to, and I think for strategy tools, we have such a wide area of, such a big scope that we can definitely leverage all of that, right? And do a lot more on this part. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. Any other comments? No, we're just running out of time, Enrico, but some great comments here. Any other observations, insights? All right, great. Thank you so much. So we'll take all of this, and I think a really big chunk is going to be keep developing those partnership programs and adding value to you, so you can keep adding value to your customer. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Bulent. Again, the Miro link will stay open as we do often, so you can come back and keep on adding your comment or adding your post-it here, and we're gonna keep an eye on that. But I will, so thank you, Bulent, for the interesting session and for all the insight here. It's nice to see the community coming forward. I would like to switch to Chris, because I think you want to do a little bit wrap up of the BD and also his thought about the day. So Chris, you're able to share the screen. Perfect. Floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And first of all, thank you, Bulent. Super interesting. And I know we didn't prepare this, but I'm going to pick up exactly where you left off. And we'll see how we can sort of make that gel. First, lots of thanks to all the speakers and panelists. This is all the discussions. And you can hear my kids and dog in the background. It's all good. Now, I wanted to show you one thing which really exemplifies what we are trying to do really this year, partially the last year, but also this year. Now, the task you were given was really around how would you work with this client to sell a transform session. I mean, that was the framing you were given. And that is something we see a lot of our partners doing. So they approach it with what I would call a little bit limited mindset. Of course, it's a starting point. But I want to show you this. So you can do the exercise that we just did and say, okay, I have a transform kit. I want to get some clients on it, and that's good. But what you also can do is this. So if you start with a couple of canvases and some one-on-one conversations, a lot of people are using the strategy intro. A lot of people are using the industry shifts map, and those are guaranteed to drive some really interesting conversations. Building on those, you want to make sure that you deeply building on this, we have the deeply understanding the strategy challenges. So this is one of those canvases that we haven't published widely, but we are using it internally with how well do we actually understand the challenges our customers are facing. Once you have those, you use a couple of canvases to co-create a solution. So, we can do this, and we can do this, and we can do this, and this, and this. And then we go through 6 months of procurement hell, because we do. So far, fantastic. And then, come back next year. Then we roll out a single BTC pilot. This is basically plug and play from the online program, where we take the existing BTC program. We may adjust it, or Scott may adjust it a little bit, but it's largely an out-of-the-box boom. And we run it as a pilot. And of course, people will say it's a really good pilot. Then we run a single transform session 3 days in person. And people will say, oh my God, this is amazing. This is the best thing ever. This is fantastic. Then we spend another 3 months to adjust and align internal stakeholders. Now, so far, you have been working with the client lead, in this case, the transformation director. But now it changes. So now you need to go rubbing elbows with the C-suite, the CEO, and the board. Extremely important that you're able to work at the board level. And as a consequence, you can now roll out a customized version of BTC to the first 10,000 people. You also roll out 50 transform sessions, 3 days. And you're really glad you have a network you can work with, because there's no way you're going to find enough hours in the day to do this by yourself. And then to build on Pegasus, you really focus on how do I work with my network? So for example, you can imagine here that we have Glenn as, I'm going to say, a project lead. And then you may have 4 or 5 or 6 strategy tools partners that are helping to run and deliver. And we run a top 300 executives transformational leadership program over typically 18 to 24 months. And internally, we use the Trusted Advisor Index to really make sure that we are building the trusted relationships that we want. And this will put the company on a really good transformation journey. And of course, you will be right there driving the story, both internally and also externally. And then eventually, when people get fired, you follow both the transformation officer and the CEO into their new jobs. And this, my friends, is what we call a solution design, because we are starting to see the most active partners really cracking this code. And they go into client sessions and they understand the richness of what they can build and what they can put together, and how it is so much more than one person and billable hours. So understanding how to take all of these pieces and assemble them into a solution and really create much more value on your time than you currently have. So this is what we call solution design. And if you guys want to learn more, I would love to host you in Stavanger in September, where we really do our most advanced deep dive into both tools and canvases, but also the solution design. So for those of you that want to learn more, come and join us in Stavanger, and we'll deep dive into this together. And by the way, minor detail, the solution, Scott, you probably recognized it, but the solution I just went through is something that we are currently delivering. We're not allowed to say the name of the big global tech company we're working with, but we are doing exactly this solution design in practice right now, with Scott and David having a very, very, very active role in it. All right, Enrico, my friend, this has been a super day. Like, really enjoyed it, extremely thankful. I'm going to turn it back to you to close it out. And Pex, I hope to see you in Norway. We're going to work on this together, because this is super interesting. All right, Enrico, back to you.
Thank you, Chris. So today, I think we are now at 55, so 5 minutes to go. I won't take long, because this has been a long afternoon or evening or morning for sure. You are full of stuff and have tons of notes. So I would like first to thank the three guest speakers that we had today: Eric Brenes from Costa Rica, Tony O'Driscoll from Duke University, and Marcus Holland from the Catapult Ocean. Again, all these three persons, maybe you can recognize and position them in the scale that Chris mentioned here. And after we talk about the tracks, and on the track we've been seeing the entrepreneurship and venture capital that has been moderated by Nir. I heard good news about that side. I've been moderating the educational part. And even there, we discussed with different panelists, and we see how our partners are actually climbing up this ladder and getting from driving this solution and this kind of market fit and understanding what the client wants to step up this and move forward. The second part of the tracks were the corporate transformation led by Glenn from Panama, and the cluster led by Roberto from Costa Rica. Again, there, especially for the cluster, for the corporate transformation, we could really switch what Scott and the other have been exposing, and Esther, what they're doing in this scale, again, that we want to see from you. On the cluster side, we know that is a niche, but it is a niche with a large potential. So fitting in a good contact, a good leads at cluster level, equivalent to thousands of potential people going through, like Roberto is doing in Costa Rica, after a lot of work of what Chris is doing now with Canada. Finally, thanks to Bulent and Scott for this BD track and how to bring us towards experiencing as sales and how we can figure out to do it well as a partner. Last but not least, two people that are in the background, that they're always there, and it's basically their, how do you say that, the spine or strategy tool to keep us structured and standing, that they are like Jolene and Adelina. I just want to make sure that we have a little thanks for them and for their unsolved work behind the curtains, not only today, but every day of the strategy. For the rest, my key takes on my side. The community really comes alive when we organize this. And the discussion that we're having are extremely interesting. What I think it is the way that we have to do it is to make sure that we can interact more, exchange more, create more matchmaking in this community, because we do have the tools and the solution and the approach. We do have amazing people with experience, with the network to bring forward. And we have also an amazing community of now 250 people around, and we had around 50 people today only, and 30 people yesterday on the CBC. So we can only see this hitting the higher stage of the Chris ladder. And this is what we want to position. So whatever like your new, mid-level or advanced level in your strategy tools, make sure that you can feel and find your journey. And if you don't find your journey for whatever reason, reach out. reach out to the Strategy Tool team, reach out to our friends of Strategy Tool and our close partner that we have, reach out to the community, reach out in Hub, reach out on LinkedIn, do as you want. But like, make sure that you don't stay alone and feel maybe bad because you're not getting the sales that you want or the visibility and the authority that you thought you had before. For the rest, this is it from my side. 1 minute to 7 p.m. Again, thanks everybody for a wonderful summit. And we're gonna be working out all the material that we collect today to offer as social media and also for our partner to further boost our business development and solution design skills. Thanks everybody from the Strategy Tool team.
Thank you, Enrico.
Thank you.